Vacation plans, long commute, weekend at the cabin. Wherever you end up this summer, the Connector Idaho Daily News helps keep you connected to Idaho, even while you're away. Get the top local stories every weekday morning in just a few minutes. That's the Connector Idaho Daily News. Listen on your podcast app.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright filling in for Gemma Goddard. It's Idaho Matters. Well, for many of us, water is something we hardly ever have to think about. But after a winter with exceptionally low snowpack levels, Boise is taking steps to ensure our water supply remains dependable. That's why the city has adopted a new drought emergency ordinance, which gives the mayor options during a drought, including the power to limit watering lawns, gardens, and filling swimming pools. Joining us now to talk more about what this all means is City of Boise Climate Action Senior Manager Steve Hubble. Steve, thanks for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
Okay, tell us about the ordinance. What's in it, and what powers could it give the city over water in an emergency?
So the city's proactively adopted a drought emergency ordinance to create a plan for future drought emergencies and protect our local water supply. The ordinance puts a framework in place to respond to any future emergencies, but isn't active today as we haven't reached conditions that would warrant it. And it aligns with a prior statewide drought declaration by Governor Little and similar water conservation efforts across other Idaho cities.
So walk us through what would happen if drought conditions got really bad and you had to put some of these things into effect. What does the ordinance allow the city to do to try and help out?
Sure. If a drought emergency were declared, it would likely be implemented in a phased approach. The first phase would be focused on education, essentially letting the community know that we're seeing conditions that indicate a need for water conservation and let them know what the potential actions are that could support that. It's likely that if a declaration is issued, it would happen in the summer. And so voluntary water conservation measures would be focused on reducing water use with outdoor irrigation. And so we provide recommendations for actions that residents and businesses can take to reduce outdoor water use. If conditions continued to worsen, then it's likely those voluntary recommendations would transition to mandatory recommendations, where we might see things like specific requirements for irrigation on certain days based on the addresses of a residence or business.
That even odd watering thing that we've seen sometimes in the past in other places.
That's correct, yes.
And that's, like watering your lawns, that would maybe include gardens. What about swimming pools? What else would be covered in there?
Potentially, it could be a range of outdoor water uses, but our water usage increases significantly in the summertime over base use in the winter. So just some of those basic reductions to that outdoor water usage likely would be aligned with addressing the declaration and getting the actions in place that we need.
Gotcha. And then, so would this affect if you had like a private well, because that's separate from like city water?
Currently, the way the ordinance is drafted is that it is only applicable to the usage of potable water from a public drinking water system. It does not currently apply to residents or businesses who use private wells or irrigation water from an irrigation provider. And the reason why is because the Idaho Department of Water Resources administers water rights and regulations for irrigators and private wells.
Oh, very good to know. Okay. We're speaking with City of Boise Climate Action Senior Manager Steve Hubble about the city's new drought emergency ordinance and what it means for the city of Boise and the community. Okay, so you made a very good line there between voluntary reduction orders and mandatory reduction orders. And obviously, hopefully voluntary steps would be good and would take care of it. But if there were a mandatory reduction order in place, are there penalties involved? I was looking at the actual ordinance. I thought I saw a misdemeanor in there somewhere. I mean, obviously that's something we don't want to get to, but is that possible?
It's certainly our hope going into this issue that we never have to utilize the drought emergency ordinance. We put it in place in the spirit of being proactive and to have it as an insurance policy in case we ever reach the point for it to be necessary. Should a drought emergency be declared, I'd anticipate that the initial focus of any enforcement action would be educational. We really want to ensure that residents and businesses understand how they can support the necessary water conservation. And I believe in 9 out of 10 instances, that would be our focus. If we were to observe an ongoing or egregious issue, the city could pursue a more formal enforcement action similar to other code enforcement mechanisms for other requirements that the city has.
Gotcha. Okay, so how are we doing this year? How's our water look in Boise, for the rest of the summer?
Well, as you can imagine, it takes a couple months to be prepared to put these type of ordinances and requirements in place. So when we started working on this earlier in the spring, we were quite nervous given the scene of the snowpack and the look of the foothills and the lack of snow. Thankfully, since that point, we did receive some rain in the late spring and also a little bit here throughout the summer through some storms. So we don't have any indications that a drought emergency declaration is imminent today, but certainly we're going to continue to monitor ongoing conditions. And if necessary, this ordinance gives us the tool to respond should conditions change.
So when you look ahead, what gives you confidence about Boise's water future? We're growing. We're going to have more of a need for water supply. There are changes to the climate. What's a positive that you're thinking about when it comes to Boise and water?
Well, we think about the drought term emergency or the drought emergency ordinance that we put into place as really a short-term opportunity to address water challenges. But in parallel with that, the city has a number of initiatives to address long-term water supply considerations. With the adoption of our modern zoning code in 2023, we incorporated new requirements referred to as assured water supply, which were put into place, and they require additional coordination and analysis between the city, water utilities, and developers during the approval process for development projects. And so we have that tool in place as well that's specifically targeted to ensure that the new development that occurs is aligned with a long-term water supply. And then additionally, we're collaborating frequently with other water stakeholders across the valley on water conservation and other long-term water supply planning efforts.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on the water. Hope it rains. Thanks for being here, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with City of Boise Climate Action Senior Manager Steve Hubble about Boise's new drought emergency ordinance.
You've been listening to the Idaho Matters podcast from Boise State Public Radio. To stay in touch, you can find quick Idaho Daily News every morning when you subscribe to the Connector podcast. If this podcast has become a part of your routine, can you tap 5 stars and leave us a review? It helps us stand out.
Each story you hear on Planet Money starts with a question. What happens if we refund tariffs? Why are groceries so expensive? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious because the forces shaping our world can be hard to see. Follow NPR's Planet Money wherever you get your podcasts and start seeing how the economy really works.